What's up, gamers? Koobs here. I've spent about a little over a year invading in Elden Ring, and I've recently made a new invader, a low-level invader, level 25, with +3 weapons, and I thought, why not kind of document a little bit of the process and share maybe some helpful tips for making an invader. The first thing, if you don't have time for this full 20-minute video with me, a couple of quick things for you. The starting class, the Vagabond, is the best starting class. That's not just my opinion, that's a pretty objective fact. It starts with the highest amount of vigor, which is the most important stat for any build, and it also starts with a nice decent allocation of strength and dexterity so that you can access a nice variety of weapons. And it also comes with really good armor. The Vagabond set is something that you can't get until you reach the giant mountaintops or whatever it is. So in that sense, it's a really good, well-rounded starting class, especially for a low-level invader. This in the background is a little bit of like where we're going to end up with things. So this is Ulasil Annalie, and she's level 25. We're using the Radagon's Source Seal. That's going to give us like an extra 20 levels. And then also a big fan of the Two Fingers Heirloom, which is going to give us 5 levels into Faith. So even though we're a level 25 character, we've got another 25 levels in our talismans that we're using. In the background, you can see me going and picking up the hand ballista. Here's the location, down in the Weeping Peninsula. Just go to that site of grace there, head north a bit, you'll find that lookout tower. Why is this important? Every invader should have access to the hand ballista or the jar cannon, one of the two. It's a incredibly useful tool for pestering enemies from a distance, and just overall awesome piece of equipment to have with you. You can get it super early on. The Weeping Peninsula is just a really great place to go and just go and explore when you're starting out. There's, I think, 3 churches there that give you sacred tears that are going to upgrade your flasks. There's also the tunnels there, so that'll give you some upgrade materials. So Limgrave Tunnel will give you 8 smithing stones and 1 somber smithing stone. And the Morn Tunnel will give you 9 smithing and 3 somber smithing stones. And then there's also the Tower of Return, which is going to send you to Lanedale, and you can get the Blessed Dew talisman there for a little bit of free HP regen. Just all good things down in the Weeping Peninsula. A couple of things that I think are important before we get too far into things. If you're making a low-level invader and you're going to keep your weapon upgrade level below, +5 or around that range, you want to be careful not to do a certain couple of things. The first one is you don't want to kill Patches when you encounter him. He's going to drop a +7 spear. You don't want to talk to Roger once he gets to the Round Table Hold. Talking to him, he's going to give you his rapier, which is a +8 weapon. And then the last one is that you don't want to kill Edgar the Revenger at the Revenger's Shack, as he's going to give you a +8 Banished Knight's Halberd. So any of those are going to change your invasion level range when it comes to your weapon scaling. In the background here, you can see this is Limgrave Tunnel. So I'm showing this clip because the game is teaching you how to play from very early on. They show you that there's an alternate route to get to the base of the elevator shaft there, and they give you a little reward for taking that route. You get a golden rune that's worth 1,200 runes, and early on, it might not sound like much, but 1,200 runes is like for nothing. It's like a free little, hey, that was worth my time. Now I'm going to check all of these tunnels for this same sort of route and see what sort of loot is there. A really nice armor set for any player early on. If you don't mind killing D before you go to the Round Table Hold, you can find him outside of Summonwater Village. That was a pretty quick way of taking him out if you just use the Morning Star. You can proc bleed on him after getting a couple of hits in, and that he'll give you a pretty nice armor set pretty early on if you're, you know, into that fashion. Just overall good set of armor. I don't think that it messes up his quest at all. I think you can still give his armor to his brother down in the aqueduct. We're not going to take things that far, but if if you're making a regular invader that you're taking up to level 80 or 125 or something like that, then, you know, it might be nice to have that option open. In the background here, we see our first fight with Margit, so he's going to give us our very first talisman pouch so that we can hold 2 talismans. We definitely want to get access to Stormveil as well, because Stormveil as an invader, a low-level invader especially, is going to be just an awesome place to invade. A lot of fun invasions happen there. I think the Rampart Tower is probably one of my favorite sites of grace in this game, just because of like all of the different routes that you can take from the Rampart Tower through Stormveil Castle. So definitely want to beat Margit here. I'm doing this. I think my weapon is unupgraded, just using the starting longsword, but you'll notice that I do have Sacred Blade, which you can get from, I think it's the 3rd Church of Marika. It's the one where you can pick up your Wondrous Physic Flask, so you definitely want to stop out that way. Grabbing the Ashes of War that buff your weapon, as well as doing something, are really useful early on. It can almost double your damage output. And they're just really great Ashes of War to have, so highly recommend. Before we get too far ahead of things, we want to mosey over to Caelid, because before the Radahn Festival is triggered, you want to get inside of Castle Redmane so that you can pick up some important items. The first one here is on the outside. You can get Flaming Strike, which is a really great Ash of War. And then there's also the Red Hot Wet Blade, which is inside of the castle. If you come here during the Radahn Festival, this door will be locked and you won't be able to access it. So you want to do this before you do anything that'll trigger the Radahn Festival from beginning. Also, while we're in Caelid, we can stop over and pick up the Star Scourge heirloom. Don't have to do much work for that one. That's going to give you plus 5 strength if you want it or need it. Here we're taking on the Royal Knight Loretta at Caria Manor. For this fight, I've gone with Lightning Slash on the Lordsworn's Greatsword. So Lightning Slash, you actually do have to go to the Altus Plateau in order to pick that up. So I've made my trip to the Altus Plateau in this playthrough before coming here to face off with Loretta. But using lightning, especially if you're in that pool of water there, is going to do a little extra damage. And just having a big heavy weapon is going to stagger this enemy quite a bit. You want to take on Loretta so that you can get started on Ronnie's quest line. You don't want to lock yourself out of any of that. But there's also access to Carrion Retaliation, which is a really great parry spell, Ash of War, that I find it super useful as an invader. This was just a quick little shortcut that I found. Like after almost a year and a half of this game, I had no idea that was there, so I thought that was cool. Here we've got our fight with Renala. You're going to want to take on, naturally you'll probably have already beat Godric the Grafted in Stormveil, but you'll want to take on, I think Renala is probably the best bet for taking out your second Rune Bearer. And then once you have 2 runes, you can get the second talisman pouch from, I think her name is Enya, the finger crone lady at Round Table Hold, like right by the 2 fingers that are there. You can get your talisman pouch so that you can now equip 3 talismans. And you'll notice I'm using Chilling Mist, which I got from Caria Manor, and I'm using the Morning Star so that I can get some bleed. I want to take advantage of those status effect procs because my weapon is a low level. But totally doable. Use some jump attacks, use some charge attacks, stagger the enemy as you can. Here I'm showing off a route to the Seathwater River. Now, this isn't super important, but this is where I like to go in order to farm volcanic rock or volcano stone or whatever it is, the materials that you want for crafting volcano pots. You can get the recipe for volcano pots up on Mountain Gelmir. I think there's a merchant up there kind of near the 9th campsite. But this is a really good place to farm the volcanic rock. You can see I'm just kind of using Torrent's walking speed here to do kind of like a quick loop around this area, and I'm picking up a ton of this volcanic stone. I have a feeling that the volcano pots were kind of like designed and intended for invaders in some sense. It's like it takes one crafting component to make them super accessible, and they're just really a really great tool for getting people to move, getting people out of a specific room or a specific hallway, really kind of punishing people for being passive and all those sorts of things. And at low level, it's really quite strong in the sense that it can just absolutely cook people. Hosts and Sunbros just absolutely cook them. So getting ready for the summertime, have yourself a little bit of a barbecue and have fun with these volcano pots. The cracked pots, so if you haven't already, this is probably a pretty obvious tip, but the Elden Ring wiki that's been done by Fextra Life is really fantastic resource for like when you're trying to find like a specific certain item that maybe you don't know where it's at or you just need a reminder. And so they've got awesome just like guides and information about where you can pick up different things throughout the Lands Between. The cracked pots is definitely something that you want to take a moment to gather up. I'm pretty sure you can get about 15 cracked pots, like just kind of out in pretty accessible areas. I think there's like 3 or 4 that are in, maybe it's the Oriza side tomb. I think there's 3 or 4 there in that location. And then there's also one in Leyndell in the royal capital. So you have to actually get into the city of Leyndell to get the last cracked pot. And that one is missable if you progress through the game past a certain point. But they're all pretty accessible, really good, useful tool for invaders. You don't have to just use the volcanic pots. You can use any of the craftable pots to throw at people. Just a really easy way to, again, antagonize or pester the host and their phantoms. Here we're taking on the Draconic Tree Sentinel. This was my second attempt. My first attempt, I didn't use any of the Scarlet Rot arrows. I was just using the Serpent arrows, and I was like, you know what, I almost had him that time, but I think if I used a little bit of the Scarlet Rot and got that to proc on him as well, that I could finish him. And so I was alternating my shots between Serpent arrows and the craftable Scarlet Rot arrows in order to get 2 types of like damage over time procced on the boss. You can see I've got Greathorn Tragoth here who is helping me out, and I'm also using Chilling Mist so I can get another proc there. A lot of this is kind of like based on, you know, how aggressive the Tree Sentinel is against me, how much he aggroes towards Tragoth, but you know, overall, again, pretty doable. We're at level 25 with +3 weapons, and so you can certainly, you know, take on that boss in order to get into Leyndell as a low-level invader. I was gonna just kind of stop showing the volcano pots and their effectiveness, but I was like, no, you know what, I have so many good clips of the usefulness and effectiveness of these volcano pots that I really want to kind of sell that point home. So highly encourage you to use these. They're a lot of fun. They punish low-level hosts and their phantoms, and again, I'm not trying to be a bully in any sense. I don't think that I'm using anything that is like overpowered. I'm using pretty accessible items. I don't have a crazy amount of stats that I'm working with, but knowing what tools are out there for you and using them appropriately is really quite useful as an invader. And a lot of that kind of comes with time and with practice and kind of the experience of invading. I've spent, you know, a little over a year invading in Elden Ring, and so some of this stuff, like, I didn't know it initially when I started invading, but as you continue to get better and continue to improve, you kind of realize what's out there, what can really help you out. I think initially I probably used regular throwing daggers quite often, and I've really kind of transitioned to using the poison bone daggers, because why not add that little bit of pressure of, oh, now I've got to deal with a little bit of poison happening as well.
Your ambition. You have fought long and hard.
That's what she said. Stupid joke, Koobs. That was dumb. Okay, so this next bit, I was going to show how you can get a really nice spirit summon. So this is at the Chapel of Inhibition, I think. Anticipation, something like that. I'm not sure exactly. It's where you start the game. It's where you very begin the journey, and you go back there and you can pick up the Stormhawk Dean Ash special summon, sorry, and if you upgrade your summons, it doesn't affect your matchmaking range. So you can get the Ghost Glovewort that you need. You can get 1 through 5 down in Siofra, the river basin. Number 6 you can get from Windham Catacombs, which was kind of near that route that I showed to get to Seathwater River. There's the Windham Catacombs, or the Windham Ruins are there, and then there's a catacomb there that you can access to get number 6. Number 7 you can get from the Gelmir Hero's Grave, and then 8 and 9 I think you can get from Mogwin's Palace, once you have access to that area. So here I'm using the summon of Stormhawk Dean to help me with the fight against Godfrey, because I don't do very good damage with the +3 weapon that I have, and so having the Stormhawk here to help me out is definitely helping in the damage department, but also in the kind of taking some of the pressure off of me. And this is totally optional. You don't have to come this far if you're doing a low-level invader. This is like kind of where things start to border on like twink, whether or not this is a twink build, because I do have 4 talisman pouches at level 25 with +3 weapons. You don't necessarily need this 4th talisman pouch, but I was like, hey, you know what, I made it into Lanedale. I didn't necessarily expect to. I kind of surprised myself in that sense, so why not see if I could take him on? And that was actually the first attempt going against Godfrey. Just being prepared and being patient with it. Things like that. So last bit here, this is just kind of showing this elevator skip down in the sewers. I thought that I could get down here and take on Moog, and because you can get the Erdtree's Favor +1 after defeating him, and I was like, that could be a nice upgrade over the Erdtree's Favor, just the initial one that you can get from Limgrave, and it wasn't really as much of an upgrade as I thought it would be. It gave me like an additional like 6 hit points and like maybe like 8 stamina and less than a full unit of weight added to my max equip load. But, you know, it's a minor incremental increase in things, but still worth it to come down here and challenge myself to take on Moog. If you have released Dung Eater from his jail cell down in the sewers, then you can actually summon him to help you with this fight. And then again, I'm using Stormhawk Dean to help me. And between the 3 of us, it's like we've got this guy. He's on the ropes already. And so that was pretty cool to kind of push myself and get through this fight with a character who is level 25 and using +3 weapons. So again, I don't think I'm like a professional or you know, exceptional at this game. I think I'm probably above average, but it's all just kind of like knowing what tools you have at your disposal. Don't let anybody else's opinion influence how you play the game. If you want to use a spirit summon, use a spirit summon. Some folks are helping, getting their friends through the game, as cooperators. So do what you got to do sometimes. But this has been kind of like a quick little, hopefully helpful video on how you could make an invader. And I just encourage you to get out there and do so. So thanks so much for watching. Hope you learned something. I have been and always will be Koobs. Peace and love, gamers.